All right, Norwich 9.3 CMP Part 2, how to fill out the data sheet. This is the only way I can get everything in a decent amount of time. So we left off with the mag catches, and now we're going to do, we did the triggers, and I'm going into, just going to recap a little bit over here. So the trigger springs, this is basically a type 2, it's common. This is just a variant for the postal meter type. We talked about the Sears springs. This ends are tapered. This one does not, but they're ground down at the end. These are tapered. Same length though. 22 coils, 26.5 coils, early, late. This plunger happens to be in the white. I've seen some marked at the top SC. We got all our different hammers right here. This is a type 1 dog leg, type 2 dog leg, 2A, which is called a wide or a fat boy, type 3 straight, type 4 M2, and then I'll show you some differences over here. Type 1 has the slot right here. The difference over here, it's a ramp, no slot. Obviously the fat one is extremely wide. Type 3s, sometimes they're marked on the face. KR2 I think is on the front. They're marked in a couple spots. Just check both sides for markings. You have it on the left, and sometimes you also have it on the right. The only difference between these two hammers is that the M2 has an extra notch cut out on this side here, which is the right side. That's for the disconnector. This one is straight across. Don't use this in an M1 style because it'll actually move around in the trigger housing and maybe not hit your bolt as well and damage your receiver or your bolt. This is a Winchester. It does have an S on the other side, actually a double S, and it was for probably Sergeant. But what's really important to understand is you'll see on eBay and other places the one on the right being called a Winchester. It's not. That's a white sewing machine. And you can look at the milling patterns. I'm trying to tilt it so you can have good light on it. The milling patterns are totally different, and the finish is different. The cuts are different. This is a white sewing machine. I've seen it on a couple angles. This is a wartime replacement or late post-war era. Don't have those confused. Don't buy them if they're advertising them as World War II. All right, Sears. All the Sears, all these are World War II production. This is the type 1, no hole, no grind mark. Marks can be on the top, bottom, side, and punch marks. These are two type 2s. This is one has the hole in it, and this one has a grind mark. See it by the RI? Oop, there it is. Grind mark, type 2. Type 3 are almost always marked on the sides. This one's a AX or XI, and it has that little shelf on there. That's to do the disconnector. And they all have holes in them. That's a type 3. Okay. What else? That's it for the trigger housing. Let's go to barrel bands, sights, and stocks. So barrel bands. Early barrel bands are narrow, type A or type 1s. Then they went to wide. It's called a B or type 2. Right here, you'll see the two pieces of metal that are brazed together. There's a little gap in there. If it's flush looking or there's saw marks, it's a cut down band. Beware. Okay, this is a legit Winchester type 2 band. When they're talking about the sling swivels, this one's the narrow earlier. This is the later one. That's a wide. I don't have the bayonet lug to show you. That's just an obvious one. Rear sight. So I got two flip sights here. I'll do the Winchester first. No, it's not the yeah, it is the Winchester. Notice how the pin is staked, circled. That's what they're asking for, things like that. The shape of the S, this is the left side. It's the short side. That's what S stands for. The right side or unmarked side is to the right. when the L flip peep sight is all the way to the forward position, this is the shortest part. This is the taller part. Short range, long range. This may be in backwards, or the whole sight might be in backwards. Just leave it alone. But I want you to know that there are markings that can be on the face right below the peep, right there, or in the very bottom like this one. This is the long range. You'll find underwood there. On the back, when it's the short sight, if you look down the bottom right there, see the W-I? Sometimes they're hard to find. That's Wadsworth for that. That's a type 1 sight or flip sight. Type 2s are heavy, one piece milled, has a screw with a plate on it. Most of them are marked on the right hand side. I have seen a couple of them marked on the left hand side. Just look out for those. These will be peened into the receiver, and it makes holes looking like that. Okay. This is a type 3 sight. It's stamped. Doesn't have the screw. The barrel to do the windage adjustment is a lot wider, checkered, flat, while the other one was concave. All the ones I've seen are part numbered on the right hand side. Alright, sights. What else are we going to talk about here? Barrel bands and stocks. Let's talk about stocks. Okay. First type of stock is the eye cut and high wood right there. So the area I'm talking about is in the middle, where that wood is high all the way almost to near the bridge. Okay, that's a type 1 stock. I'm not going to talk about markings or anything like other videos. Type 2 starts with the oiler. The oiler is a longer cut in the stock than the eye cut. If somebody tries to make an eye cut out of the stock, the oiler will be flopping around in there loosely. Just be aware of that. The eye cut was tighter, and we still maintain our high wood, which is near the bridge of the stock. That's a type 2 stock. Type 3 stock was made purposely, make sure it's not a cut down, where the wood was cut a lot more forward, where it's actually wide over here. Okay, but we still retain the oval cut all the way through production now. This is a short channel. How do I know it's a short channel? Simple. See the barrel band spring? Turn it to where the barrel would lay. It's pretty close to that. I call a type 3A. It's the same exact thing. Oval, low wood by my hand. But when you're looking at the spring and then you flip it over, you notice there's about another inch of wood between the spring and here. That's where I refer to it as a 3A or a long channel stock. Type 4 is a type 3A, but manufactured by Inland and Winchester. It's the same thing, but it has a made M2 cut. Left side, bridge is gone, and some routing on the right hand side. Long channel. That's a type 4 stock. The last type stock, this is called a pot belly. So we have the oval, and then you notice that big belly right there. Well, that's to reinforce where the bridge used to be, so it wouldn't split as much, and we still retain the long channel. Okay, those are your stocks. I might as well go into recoil plates while I'm here. Recoil plates. Early, type 2, sloped. Then we got type 3s, straight, marked all over the place. There's just a couple examples there. I did want to point out this one. This is a cast. See the cast line? If you can't see this cast line, you probably shouldn't be holding the rifle, because that is like very pronounced. Now some of them are a lot less noticeable. Just watch out for the gunk. Take a good look at it. Usually in the areas over here is a rougher finish, like a sandblasted looking finish, but definitely will have the lines in it. If you have to take the gun out, sometimes you'll be able to see it sitting in the stock. I just want to point that out. That's post-bore cast. butt plates. The only ones I really want to talk about are these two diagonals. This is a 11 squares per inch versus 13. Early inland, all production of Underwood. 13 per inch, 11 per inch. Inland, Underwood. I didn't bring out a full threaded recoil screw, but I did want to show you the differences. There's 1X, which is like mid-production for Winchester, and 2X's, which are a little bit later, mixed in towards the end. Did want to show you that. Oop, wrong way. IW marked. If you look really close, the other one in my hand has an SW on it. Let's see what I get. There we go. See it? Cap marked. Extremely early. Be careful. On the inside, it should be a leather washer or sometimes a fiber washer. Those are your oilers. IS was through all production, World War II. All right. I'll show you one more stock while we're out here. So this stock is an M1A stock, paratrooper stock. That's what they're looking for as far as the numbers in there, what the pie looks like, and the number to the right of the pie. They're asking about the rivets over here. What do they look like? They're flat. This one's MRT dated for the leather, but on the inside you can see they're tubular right there. Okay, that's what they're talking about. All right, I think I have a bayonet lug I want to show you. World War II manufactured rifles with a bayonet lug on them. You'll notice on this Winchester, the proof mark. Get it. The proof mark is above the bayonet lug while it's installed and together. There's the manufacturing W and there's the exposed. If that mark was underneath the bayonet lug, the gun was never made with it like that. All right, so that's what I'll hold off. This is a World War II Winchester, by the way. See the C? Very different than some of the stuff they do. All right, this is part 2. Next part, we're going to go in and we're going to talk about the receiver, the front sight, and barrels, and the receivers in the next one. All right, come back for part 3.